Good morning, school leaders and board chairs. This is Rhiannon Sargent from the Audubon Center of the Northwoods, and today we're going to talk through the FY18 World's Best Workforce and Annual Report template. The purpose of the annual report is to primarily inform the public and your school community about your school, your successes, and your opportunities for growth. The annual report is a key data source used by us at the Audubon Center of the Northwoods to gather information on your school performance. This document provides guidance to the schools authorized by ACNW regarding the completion of the required annual report. Schools that follow this guidance will meet statutory requirements for the annual report, will facilitate gathering of information for ACNW, and will provide essential information to the public and your school community. So this document is an outward-facing document, meaning that it is designed to inform the public and the community about what's going on in your schools. So you should take this opportunity to really talk about all the wonderful things that are happening at your school and also some challenges, and let your community know how things are going or how they have gone in the last school year. These guidelines also address the requirements for World's Best Workforce Annual Report, assuming that you are creating just one report that meets both the Charter School Annual Report requirement as outlined by Minnesota Statute 124E and the World's Best Workforce Annual Report requirements outlined in Minnesota Statute 120B.11. MDE also issues guidance for the World's Best Workforce Summary Report, which is a little different, and you can find information on their website. It's also linked in the guidance, and that must be submitted to the commissioner. Some important notes about this guidance is that the annual report must be approved by your board of directors prior to issuing the report to ACNW and to your school community. So the board has to be aware of this. They have to have read it and have to have approved it before it comes to us at Audubon or is published out to your broader community. The approved annual report must be submitted to ACNW by November 1st of 2018. The school must submit a summary report of your World's Best Workforce report to the Commissioner of MDE according to MDE specifications, likely by December 17th. That's not an exact date. Last year it was the 15th, and that falls on a weekend, so we're putting that date at a likely December 17th, but you should be aware of that exact date by going to MDE's website and making sure you're aware of what that is. The final annual report and World's Best Workforce report must be posted to the school's website and distributed to the school employees and parents by November 1st of 2018. Some tips for this guidance document are as follows. Notes from our office, ACNW, are in italics. Please remember that if you're using this document as your guidance and you're writing in the document that was sent out to you, please remember to delete the italics after each section. It makes it look cleaner. It's a much more readable report, and it doesn't give the appearance that you just wrote in here as if you're answering direct questions from ACNW. It's really designed as guidance for you, so please delete that. Remember that ACNW is not the only audience for this report. As stated earlier, this is really for your stakeholders in your community, so you'll want to make sure that the report is readable to that audience as well. So present information without excessive jargon and spell out acronyms for the first time that they're used. Most people that are not in education or not steeped in this are not sure of what the acronyms stand for or what jargon it is that we use in our field. So please be cognizant of that and make sure that you explain any acronyms that you may put in the document. Directly report your school's performance on contractual goals and provide academic performance data beyond the state testing data. So tell a complete story. We do review all of these once they're given to us, and so we can kind of get a sense of where people are at and how they're telling these stories. And you want to make sure that you're not being so narrow in the information that you're providing or telling a story that isn't completely factual or doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't do anyone good to, not tell certain information or to hide things. So please be honest and open about the data that you're presenting to your community. Share specific successes and challenges of your past year. Your school community wants to know what's going on, and not most schools have at least some kind of a challenge during the year, and that's not inherently a bad thing. And it just provides you an opportunity to talk to your community about the ways that you're addressing some of those challenges if you have them. And of course, please highlight anything great and awesome that's happening in your school, because you want to be sure that everyone can share in that as well. Next, please use graphics and charts along with narrative to share information. Again, it makes it a little bit more easy for people to kind of correlate the information and see what you're talking about. So you want to provide the context for any of those graphs and charts that you're using. Again, because some of them can be hard to understand by the broader public, so you'll want to make sure that you provide some context to that so that they can clearly understand what you're talking about. Focus on performance from the immediate past school year. So this report is for the FY17-18 school year. You can include previous year's data to illuminate any relevant trends. So if in FY18 you saw a sharp increase in student outcomes in any particular area, you can use that information from the previous year to illustrate that for your families as well. But this is again about the FY17-18 school year, so make sure you're narrowing your focus into that particular year. Include key information in the narrative. So you'll want to avoid appendices. You can have them, but you'll want to make sure that the bulk of the information or the narrative you're talking about, any specific section, is in that section. So make sure you're telling your main story there. Next, use photos and other visuals to enhance your report. It really is, again, for the community. I can't emphasize that enough, that you'll want to make it something that they want to read, that draws them in, that shows them fun photos of what you've done in your school year, what's happening in the school, because it just makes it a more friendly, approachable report that I think will tell more of the story that you probably want to tell to your community. The suggested length for this report is 30 to 60 pages, not too long, but not too short. You don't want to get long-winded and make it an unreadable report that's 400 pages long. Nobody has fun reading things that long, and I'm exaggerating here. But you don't want to make it too long that makes it, so that people don't really want to read the whole thing. And you don't want to make it too short so that you're not really telling a full story about what's happening in your school. So really be balanced in your approach here. Make sure you give yourself enough space and time to really describe and talk about the things that are happening in your school. Please do not provide personal information or personal evaluation information on individual staff members or students. So none of that, this is the outcome of a specific evaluation. You can talk about different trainings and professional developments that you're in, but you don't really want to talk about any of, the outcomes of an evaluation. That's not appropriate for this report, so please don't do that. Statutory information regarding the charter school annual report. The guidance for this really comes from 124E.16 subdivision 2 and includes the following requirements. A charter school must establish an annual report approved by the board of directors. The annual report must include at least the following information. School enrollment, your student attrition, governance and management, staffing, finances, academic performance, innovative practices and implementation, and future plans. And we'll talk about all of these as we go through the document in their specific section. A charter school may combine this report with the reporting required under Section 120B.11, governing the world's best workforce. Again, you don't have to, but it's probably a good idea so that you're not writing two concurrent reports. Again, separate from the summary. A charter school must post the annual report on your official website. The charter school must distribute the annual report by publication, mail, or electronic means to its authorizer, school employees, and parents and legal guardians of the students enrolled in your charter school. The reports are public data under Chapter 13. A note here about posting your annual reports on your website. Again, as we review websites, it's been noted that several schools put the annual report in areas that are less accessible to the public. but remembering that this is something that you want people to read. You don't want to bury it in locations on your website that are hard to find. So please put it in a place where your families can access it, where the community can access it, because it is an outward-facing document. In addition to 124E.7 subdivision 7, requires information regarding training attended by each board member specifically, and we'll talk about this again later. The school shall include in its annual report the training of each board member and what they attended during the school year that is being discussed. So again, this is the FY17-18 school year. Finally, 124E.12 subdivision 2 requires information regarding the professional development of non-licensed school administrators specifically. The board of directors and an individual who does not hold a valid administrative license but who serves in an administrative, supervisory, or instructional leadership position shall develop a professional development plan, and the school's annual report must include public personnel information documenting the professional development. So this means anybody who's in that administrative role, like your executive director, sometimes there are other administrative staff that are in charge of other parts of your administrative team, and you'll want to put their professional development activities and plans in this report. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to us here at ACNW here in the office, and we will help talk you through some of that. The statutory information regarding the World's Best Workforce Annual Report is here. I won't talk through all of it. It is rather lengthy, but please see this section to specifically pull out the requirements of your World's Best Workforce Annual Report and how they are incorporated into your annual report throughout this document. Again, for further information about your World's Best Workforce requirements, the link is embedded in the guidance that was emailed to the school leaders and board chairs. So please click that link and look through that. It's also look above here and see all the information that is required under World's Best Workforce. Here we have the sample annual report cover page, so please feel free to put your school name in here. And here, again, we have a note that it's an opportunity to create a creative cover with compelling images of your school and or your school logo. So we really try to make it easy. You can just copy and paste here. At the bottom, we have your school name, your public charter school district number. The school year that you're reporting on is already plugged in, 17-18, and what the report is. So we have it here. You don't need to edit that necessarily unless you are not combining it with your World's Best Workforce annual report here. So I think that most of you are, so you'll probably just leave that. Table of contents are next. So this is a suggested order and headings. Add page numbers to each section, which is really, really helpful. On occasion, we see schools not put the page numbers here, or the page numbers listed here don't coincide with the actual page numbers. So please be sure to make sure you're checking for those kind of smaller details so that it's easier for people to kind of jump to the specific sections they want to read. And for us in the office as well. We do read, again, all of these annual reports. And we'll provide feedback, but that's something that has jumped out in the past as something that people sometimes miss. And so you don't need to change that, the order here. You just plug in the page number. Here we want the school information, so the contact information. What's the address, phone number, email, and web address of the school? And again, you can just plug that in and erase the italics. Next, we want to know what grades you serve. So again, you can kind of put that alongside of the header here, the bolded section. What year the school opened? I want to know that. And then the next is your mission and vision. You should be able to just kind of plug your current mission and vision in here, so it shouldn't be super complicated, but maybe check to make sure that everything matches up here and that the fonts are all the same, just to make sure that it looks kind of consistent and readable. Next is the authorizer information. You may want to provide a brief narrative about the authorizer-school relationship. If you have any questions about how that could look, you can please reach out to us. And then when the relationship started, so how long have you been with ACNW? And if you want the term of your current contract or any other relevant information. We've put, a couple quick paragraphs here about the authorizing mission of ACNW and our vision, and you can feel free to leave that in your document. Just again, put your information and delete any italics. And then we've plugged in the contact of ACNW and the director of the charter school information here, so you can just leave that as well. Next is where we're going to talk about your implementation of primary purposes and your additional purposes. So please describe the statutory purpose of the school as presented in the charter contract. And that is, there's an exhibit in your contract that will specifically lay out in that part of your contract, which is your statutory purposes. It tells you what that is, and then it also tells you your additional purposes. One of the things that we noticed, one of the common mistakes in writing the annual report, is that people will write information about the primary purpose of the school but forget those additional purposes. Your additional purposes are also outlined in your contract. So if you're unsure of what those are, please go back and review your contract and see what they are, and then talk about how you are designing your program to meet those purposes. 3 is your student enrollment and demographics. So please provide a brief narrative discussion discussing enrollment trends, your anticipated enrollment for the next school year, or any other relevant enrollment information. Again, please delete any italics, but please talk about that here. Complete a table below, deleting the graded level rows that are not relevant. So here we've outlined what we want you to do here. So the number of students enrolled for any of these school years here. So your 2016-17 enrollment, your 2017-18, and your 18-19 estimated enrollment. So if you don't serve some of the grades in this list, you can go ahead and just delete those rows from here. If you have a preschool or pre-K program, we do want you to put your number of students enrolled, which is new from last year. We did not have that in this document. So please pay particular note to that if you have one of those programs. Then remember to put the total and then the total ADM or average daily membership for each of those school years, and for the next school year, that's an estimate. Next, we're going to talk about, or we want you to talk about, your student demographics. So what's your total enrollment again for those same 3 school years? The total enrollment, what's the breakdown, male, female, special education, English language learners? If you don't have any, you don't have any. Free reduced price lunch students, Black, non-Hispanic, Hispanic Latino, and all those other subgroups. Please report on those here. Again, just make sure you're filling out boxes. If it's an NA, just go ahead and fill it out, but you want it to look kind of consistent and uniform as you report. So make sure you're not just skipping things here and there. It'll just won't look clean. Number 4, you want to talk about your student attendance, attrition, and mobility. So for student attendance, you'll provide a brief narrative discussing the trends in your attendance rates. If you serve a school or your school serves students that are a highly at-risk population, for example, former dropouts or overaged or undercredited students, you may consider providing some additional data, such as a percentage of students with attendance above 90%, the percent increase of student attendance rate from the prior school year or prior school, or other data that provides a more complete picture of that attendance information. If attendance did not meet your school's goal or expectations, include the strategies that you plan to implement or are implementing to improve your student attendance. Next is student attrition. So there is no guidance in statute from MDE regarding what is meant by student attrition. The following are possible approaches suggested by us here at ACNW, as we believe this information is valuable for the school, for us as the authorizer and your community. Essentially, we believe that it's useful to understand if students are staying at your school year after year. So you may consider using one or all of these approaches, or another approach to effectively tell your story of student attrition. And then provide a brief narrative discussing your attrition rates, which could be called retention rates, or as opposed to attrition. If you have multiple years of data, you can discuss trends here. So the following is a couple ways that we see you being able to report on this data. So please feel free to use this if it's useful for you. So the percentage of students who were continuously enrolled between October 1 of the prior school year and October 1 of the current school, or the school year in which you're reporting. So who was there on October 1st of 2016-17, and who's still there on October 1st of 2017-18. So this does not include graduating students or those who have completed your program. If your school is K-6, you don't include students who have completed the 6th grade. The next way you could do this is the percentage of students who continued enrollment in the school from spring of 17 to October 1st. So those kids that returned over the summer. You do not include graduating students again here, or those that completed 6th grade. So these are a couple different ways you could approach it. I think the one that I've seen the most is the first one, which is the October 1 to October 1. But again, feel free to pick whichever one you feel like works best for you. The next section is student mobility. MDE provides data regarding student mobility within a given school year. In other words, the number and percentage of transfers in and out of your school. So this data can be found here at the link that's provided in the document. And so just follow this path to get to that information. So please note that the data is 1 year behind in terms of its availability. And so you may also present information from your student reporting system that documents the percentage of students who were enrolled for 95% or more of the school year. So you can get that from your own data collection database. These data points help readers of your annual report understand if you've worked with a number of different students during the course of a school year, or a highly mobile population, or if you have a stable, relatively stable student population during the school year. You may consider presenting data for multiple years to be able to tell a little bit of a story about what that looks like year to year. And here we provide a table for you to plug in information to kind of help guide you through this. Again, these are kids that were in the school as of October 1. And then provide a brief narrative about the information that you present, including any trends over the past couple years. Here's one more way that we're talking about student mobility here. You also could or should provide the percentage of students who enrolled 95% or more during the current school year. I think I talked about that a little earlier. But again, provide a narrative discussing that rate and trends over the past couple years. Section 5 is where we're going to talk about the educational approach and curriculum of the school. So provide a narrative regarding the school's educational approach and curriculum. And so we've provided some bullet points of what that should look like, or what you should address here. So we want to discuss the school's key pedagogical approach and alignment to the school mission. So how is what you're doing in the school in terms of pedagogy aligned with what your school's mission is? The instructional program and curriculum, tell us a little bit about that. Explain the breadth and depth of the curriculum and its alignment to the state standards, again, and the school's mission. Here we want to talk about the remediation and acceleration practices. Some schools are unclear about what we mean by that, especially if they're a program that maybe sees itself as having that built into its program, but you'll still want to address it to kind of give a sense of what you're doing for those kids who may need some further assistance or a boost, and then those kids who are working ahead and how you're providing opportunities for those students as well. Next, you'll want to talk about the special education program and the English language learner program. If you don't have English language learners, you can just state that. But if you're thinking about what that looks like, or if you have English language learners in your program, even on a smaller scale, please talk about that here. As well as your special education program, let us know what that looks like. So some schools will describe, what their particular model to, approaching special ed is. And we want to know about that because we use it. And your community wants to know what that looks like as well. Next, in this section, you want to talk about your preschool program or pre-K program if you have one. Several schools do. I think we have at least 8, maybe 7 or 8 schools with preschool programs. I could be wrong, it might be more. But you'll want to talk about what that looks like and how it's aligned to your broader program as well. If you have an after school and summer program, we want to know about that here. It's also part of your contract. So you'll want to let your community know what you're doing in that area. You'll talk about how the school is staffed to meet its educational mission. So how is your staff aligned to be able to implement the instructional program that you've designed? You'll also want to talk about the graduation requirements if you have a high school. So please be descriptive here. It's sometimes hard to say, well, we need 30 credits. And that might count, but it's nice to know what those kind of are constructed of and what students need to do to graduate again, so that your community is aware of what that looks like. And lastly, the school calendar and the daily schedule that includes a total number of instructional days or minutes. I think I should emphasize, or I'd like to say that it would be helpful if you put the school minutes in. I mean, we can always calculate it, but some schools have longer, shorter days or half days, and it can be a little bit difficult to understand. So please make sure that that's clear. And if you could, or if you would like to, please calculate that in minutes. It just makes certain information gathering a little bit easier. Section 6 is where you're going to talk about your innovative practices and implementation. So you'll provide a narrative regarding your school's innovative practices and implementation. So information should address the following. Innovative or unique aspects of your school, especially as they relate to your school's specific mission. What are you doing that's unique, that's aligned to your mission that maybe not everybody's doing? Talk about that here. Talk about any key successes from your past school year, or key challenges as well, because again, as we talked about earlier, you want to give a sense of really what's happening in your school and all those wonderful things, but also, what you've perceived as a challenge as it pertains to your practices and implementation at the school. And then a plan to address any of those challenges if you see any. Be thoughtful in this, because again, it's a story that you're telling to your community, and so you don't want to make it look like, well, we have a challenge and it's cool, we're not going to do anything about it. I mean, if you do, you want to talk about what your plan is here. And then any highlights of your school's strategic plan. And so you can also attach your strategic plan to this document. It's not a requirement, but you can do so. Section 7, you're going to talk about your school's academic performance goals and benchmarks. So in this area of your report should be the most robust and the most comprehensive of your report, as the primary purpose of schools is to increase all student learning. So here you really want to talk about what your performance is and really put a lot of meat in this section. So the purpose of the school is to educate students, and this is your opportunity to report those results in a comprehensive way. And it's your opportunity to tell your story and back it up with the data. So here's probably where we're going to want to see a lot of those graphs and graphics to really bring that story up and let people see what it is you're talking about. And you must provide all the data on all locally administered assessments or measures. So include data beyond the basic state testing that is published by the newspaper. So what that means is beyond the MCAs. Are you doing NWA? Are you doing FAST? All that data should be here. Anything that you're doing in your school should go into this section as it pertains to local assessments. So here you want to talk about your progress on ACNW contractual academic goals and world's best workforce alignment. If you see, obviously you've all seen your goals and how they're constructed. It pulls out in there how it's aligned to a world's best workforce, so you can just take that data out of your Exhibit G. And then provide a summary narrative, so 2 or 3 paragraphs describing the school's performance on the contractual goals, highlighting any strengths, providing reasoning why goals may not have been met if they haven't been met, and describe any plans for improvement in areas in which the goals were not met. So please, please, please be really robust here. And again, we're going to lay it out pretty clearly for you in the next section. Here we lay out, what the world's best workforce goal areas are. So ready for kindergarten, read well by 3rd grade, the achievement gap closure, career and college readiness, and graduation from high school. And these are all listed throughout here, how as they're aligned to your specific goals, and you can go back again and look at your Exhibit G and see how those are aligned. So indicator 1, again, from your Exhibit G, you'll want to take that and put that here. What's the goal? So you can copy and paste it from your Exhibit G. The world's best workforce goal, that's addressed. You can put that here. And any key measured results for this. So provide the data and an analysis of the performance on your mission-related outcomes. And again, several of you, or most of you, all of you, by now have received your latest evaluation, but not for FY18. But you can kind of take a look and see kind of how we write our narratives here, if that helps you kind of provide a narrative for your FY18 data. Because we haven't sent that evaluation, but you can get a sense for language or how to talk about it too by looking at some things that we sent. The next section here is your English language learners. If you have a goal related to English language learners, you want to plug it in here. Again, this is designed for you to just kind of plug the information in. So here we have a new for FY18 as the reports from MDE has changed in how they are measuring progress towards English language proficiency. We've put that here. Some of you may not have seen this yet. If you have any questions about it, we can certainly talk. Please feel free to give us a call here at the office. Several of you have new goals that are in this format, so you'll just want to plug that in here. And so we're looking at this section that I just highlighted here. So we're really looking for 2 pieces of information. And again, we only have 1 year because this is the first year that we're going to get this information. So you'll want to put the percentage of students making progress towards English proficiency, and you will get that. The state target is 46%. If you have any questions about what that number is, where it came from, please go to MDE's website and look for the ESSA page in which it describes these targets for English language learners. And we can talk about that again here in the office if you have any questions. And then the next piece of information we're looking for is the average progress students made towards their target. And this target is on a 0 to 100 or a 1 to 100, I'm sorry, scale. And so we want to know what the average number of students is. So, you know, take the average of all of your students that took the test, what number did they get, and then average it out, and that's the number we want to plug in here. But please contact the office if you have any questions about reporting on this Access and EL learner information. We can help you through that. And then provide a narrative explanation and analysis of your school's access data. Next is going to be reading growth. Again, you can go into your Exhibit G and copy and paste those measures from your school's specific goals here and follow the similar path. Same with the next for math growth. Pull your Exhibit G. So all the rest of these sections I won't talk through as much as I did for the last ones, but please go through your G and plug them in here as outlined for every other area. And if you don't have a goal in that area, and if you're a school that's still on old goals, you'll still want to make sure you can align these. I think it still works. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us here at the office. And then lastly, I think what I want to talk about in this area is a couple other things that we want to pull out here and highlight. So on your federal and state accountability, we want you to provide a narrative of the school's world's best workforce goals and the strategies and initiatives that the school used to meet the goals and subsequent progress on these goals. So here it's outlined what those are for world's best workforce. So kindergarten readiness, again, 3rd grade reading scores, 8th grade math scores, the achievement gap data, graduation dates, and teacher equity data. And again, there's guidelines for this information. And if you want some direction on that, please feel free to contact us. Or you can also look at MDE's World's Best Workforce page. The next 2 sections are also new for FY18. So we want to pull that out as well and make sure that the school knows what we're looking for here. So next is a high quality charter school status. If your school was identified by the department as a high quality charter school, talk about that here. Hey, it's a way to talk about all the great things and how you've been pulled out and identified as the state as a high quality charter school. And so it's a moment for you to talk about that here. Next is ESSA identification. So this is again something new for FY18. Under ESSA, Minnesota will be identifying schools that receive comprehensive supports or targeted support beginning in the FY18-19 school year. So you will receive that data, I believe, by the end of August. You'll preliminary data by late August, and then everyone will get that information by August 30th or 31st. So if you're unsure of what this is or what's going to be presented out, please contact us, or you can also go to Minnesota's ESSA page and look for information on what those categories are and how schools are being identified. But we don't have that data yet, but you will have it before this report is due. So if you are identified, if your school is identified as needing comprehensive or targeted support, we are going to ask that you put that in your annual report document. And then the next section is any additional academic data. So you'll want to consider the goal information already provided above. And in this section, you can include any additional data or narratives or tables or charts that would be helpful to tell any other story that you want to tell to the school stakeholders or to the public. So you can put that here under additional data. Section 8 is the educational effectiveness and assessment and evaluation, Here you'll provide a narrative regarding the school's educational effective practices that integrate high quality instruction, rigorous curriculum, instruction technology, and a collaborative professional culture that supports teacher quality, performance, and effectiveness. And so that should include the specific areas of need in the school's education program that were identified at the start of the 17-18 school year. So, and the data those needs were based upon. You also put the school's process for assessing and evaluating each student's progress towards meeting the state and local academic standards. So if your school has students with, or you work with students who, individual learning plans or something like that, you'll want to talk about what's your process for assessing how each student's progressing through those. The school's process for disaggregating data by student group in order to assess the school's educational effectiveness in relation to those different groups of students. What's the school's process for reviewing and evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of your instruction and curriculum? Do you have a curriculum review cycle? You can talk about that here. The school system for periodically reviewing and evaluating effectiveness. Again, I think that's what I just said here. Instruction and curriculum, and taking into account the strategies and best practices, student outcomes, school principal evaluations, teacher evaluations, and how that plays together here. Specific information on strategies for improving instruction, curriculum, and student achievement. Next is, educational effectiveness, or effective practices, that integrate high quality instruction, rigorous curriculum, technology, and a collaborative professional culture that develops and supports teacher quality, performance, and effectiveness. And lastly, the school's process for examining the equitable distribution of experienced and qualified teachers across the district. This is going to help, again, this particular spot here aligns with Rose's workforce. So as well, so you'll note that there's an alignment here in that section. What data are you including? How does the school use data to set forth strategies to ensure that low-income and minority children are not taught at higher rates than other children by inexperienced, ineffective, or out-of-field teachers? Section 9 is where you talk about student and parent satisfaction. So please present data here that the school has collected regarding students and parent satisfaction and perceptions of safety in a chart or graph form along with a narrative. Here's another note just for quality improvement. Several schools will present data that's unclear here. Either they'll present student data and not parent data, or parent data and not students. So please present them both. Another thing to note here is that the school will, for example, say, 100% of the families surveyed said that they're happy, but won't say how many parents responded to that survey. So, effectively, out of, 45 parents, 10 of them responded and all 10 said they were happy, but you haven't articulated that only 10 of 45 responded to that survey. So you want to be, again, here is where you can be less than clear, but please be clear in what you're stating. And if you don't have a lot of parents that are responding, or students that are responding to your parent or student surveys, what's a strategy for increasing their involvement in this survey? Because this is also something that's a requirement of the school. So you'll really want to pay particular attention here, and gives a sense of, you know, are you providing the parents in the community with what they've asked you to provide here? So please be honest and open here about what those percentages are, and you know how many of your families participated. Section 10 is environmental education. So in this area, you will report substantial information regarding the environmental education activities carried out at your school. This is a central element to your school's contract with ACNW, and it is important for you to share this with with ACNW and your community. So here we have a outline of what we're asking for here. So the mission of the school's authorizer is listed here. You can keep that here. And then you'll go on and describe your school's approach to environmental education and providing a narrative that outlines the school's environmental education program, which is increasing students' environmental literacy, and how the school knows students are becoming more environmentally literate. So please feel free to read through this. If you have any questions, I'm sure you can feel free to reach out to Erin here in the office, and she will help guide you through that if that is something that you would like. Section 11 is governance and management. Here you'll include the annual board training and administrator professional development reports. For the board of directors, you'll provide a brief narrative about the capacity and role of the board. This narrative should address key indicators included on our performance framework. If you're unsure of what that is, please feel free to reach out to the office. We can provide that to you. We've outlined a table here, which really helps guide what we're looking for. So we want each of the board members' names, what are their particular positions on the board, the affiliation, what date were they elected, what date were they seated as, that is probably different from the date that they were elected, and when is the term date end, and then their contact information. We want that here. The next section is the board training and development. Again, we're going to put it in a chart form to help make it easy for you. So please provide a narrative regarding your school's commitment and approach to board training and development. So again, with this chart, we're going to put the board's names. We want their original seat dates, the roles and responsibility of that training, and then the employee, or actually, let me back up and say that these are the different buckets, the 3 buckets of the initial training, I'm sorry. So the first bucket would be a required training around board's roles and responsibilities. Who was the presenter? Who did the training? We want that information here. And the same for employment policies and practices and financial management. So this is a statutory requirement. All board members have to have their initial training. So we want to see that it was done and that where all those trainings were done here. Next, again, per statute, all boards are required to engage in annual training. So here you'll want to provide information on the ongoing annual training by each current board member. And so even if someone stepped off the board at the end of FY18, but they were still on the board in the last school year, you still have to keep their names here and want to know what they did. And so a list of trainings attended by the board without specifically indicating who went to those trainings is insufficient. We want to know who was at each of these. 2 possible formats are provided here below, so please feel free to use whichever one you find most useful. But again, remembering that all of your board members are required to attend some training, so please let us know what the topic was and who is the presenter. If your board engaged in monthly training, discussions, that's okay. You can still put that here. We just want to know what it is so that we can see that your boards are engaging in that ongoing training as required by statute. The next section here is your management section. So we will want to know about what's going on regarding your school's management. And so this could include a discussion of your structure with an org chart. Um, if you have a CMO, none of our schools do at this point. You would want to provide that here. What are some past successes and challenges related to your school's management? What's your formal review process that the board uses to evaluate your school's management? And then any key staff changes or transitions that you may have went through in the last school year. Here you'll describe the administrative professional development plans and an implementation as per statute. So here we lay out what statute says here. So please provide information around that, and then provide information on that plan and implementation of it. And please note, documentation such as a plan and its implementation is required for all non-licensed individuals in an administrative, supervisory, instructional role. So please, if you're not sure what that means, please reach out to us. We can help you, but that is a requirement in this section. Next, you'll want to list the administrators and their qualifications for the roles that they're in this section. And then here we ask for a professional development plan for the individual. So please follow this guideline here. What are their professional development goals or areas of focus for 17-18, and any activities completed or where they are in their progress, and any results of that. And then what are their goals for the upcoming school year? We want to hear about that as well. Section 12 is your staffing. So here, again, we've tried to make it super, super easy. So who was your 2017-18 licensed teaching staff? Their name, their file number, their assignment, and their licensure area and their assignment, what subjects or grades, their 17-18 status. So are they returning or are they not returning? And any additional comments here. And then we also want to know about the professional development activities of your staff of your teaching staff for the 17-18 school year. So please provide the professional development activities that were completed by your teachers. And so if all your teachers didn't participate, that's fine, but please let us know who didn't go to what so that we can see that a realistic picture of who's engaged in these trainings or not engaged in the trainings. So please put that here. For your teacher retention, please provide a pre-discussion about your teacher turnover rate, including trend data if that's appropriate. So here we put the percentage of licensed teachers from 17-18 that are not returning for the FY19 school year. So here we give you a kind of breakdown of how to get to that percentage here. Also, we're asking for the 17-18 other licensed or non-teaching staff. So if you have an administrator that's in a role but they're not teaching, put their name and their license and their assignment here and whether or not they're returning or not returning for the next school year. And then also a list of all your non-licensed teaching staff, so your paras and anybody else on staff that you have, put their name here, their assignment, whether or not they're returning, and any comments that you would like. And then we're also going to ask for your 18-19 staffing in the same format. So which licensed teaching staff are coming back, what will they be teaching, and again, their file numbers for 17-18, any administrators or licensed staff that are not teaching, we want those for the new school year. Sorry, I should update these. I realized that those are not updated, but we want to update those for the 18-19 school year. So that's what we're talking about here. And then again, your non-licensed teaching staff. Section 13, we want to talk about operational performance. So please provide a narrative that describes your school's operations and provides relevant data that addresses a number of areas related to the school's operations. These may focus on certain elements reviewed in the operations and performance evaluation. However, you do not simply copy and paste the entire evaluation. Consider information that your stakeholders will find interesting. So we have a list of what that may include. So health and safety, what kind of transportation do you provide to your families? I'll talk about your facilities a little bit. Do you provide food service programs? Student discipline data, parent engagement, how are you engaging your parents in your community? What are your hiring practices, and whether or not, you have to provide background checks. but what's that process for staff, board, and volunteers? So we want to hear about that information here. Section 14 is the school's finances. So the following is one approach to provide financial information for the annual report. Full financial statements are not necessary. Even though you may not have your final FY18 audited financial information, you still must provide the preliminary information. For questions regarding your school's finances and for complete financials for an or who's that person that we want to direct questions to. I'm sorry, that's what we're asking for here. So what's the name, position, and contact information that we would want to have here so that someone could contact someone regarding those that financial information. So please put that here. And if it's a service provider, you can put that person here. The information presented below is derived from preliminary audit figures. The full financial audit will be completed and presented to the Department of Ed and Audubon Center no later than December. So obviously this report is due before December 31st, and that audit information is not necessarily available. So we've provided this outline of how we would like the information presented here. It breaks out the different funds, what are your revenues and expenditures, your total fund balance. Again, this is designed for you just to plug the information in. And then provide a brief narrative for, the overall financial situation that you're presenting, successes and challenges from FY18, and whether or not you have met your enrollment targets or fell below targets or received large grants or holdback or lines of credit. Please talk about all of that here. For your revenues, please provide a brief narrative regarding your revenues, including the total revenue, key sources, special grants, or breakout, and please break out funds 1, 2, and 4. Again, that's above, you can see that. Here you'll talk about your expenses, provide a narrative around that. Were there any large costs? What's your facilities looking like? Staffing, special ed and transportation, and any other special grants or large investments that you may have in your expense section. And then any net surplus or deficit, and what is your fund balance? Provide a narrative around that, as well as a discussion of your fund balance level and any ongoing fund balance goals that you may have. We also would like you to put here your world's best workforce, annual budget, and a brief narrative on that as well. And then section 15 is any future plans that you may have, for the upcoming year. So you'll want to provide a brief narrative on your key strategic areas for the school moving forward, and that could include any expansion plans, any facilities changes, programmatic changes, or any technology updates. So that concludes the FY18 World's Best Workforce and Annual Report Guidance webinar. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today or anything in the document, please feel free to reach out to us at ACNW, and we look forward to working with you as you write your FY18 Annual Report. Thank you so much for your time, and have a lovely rest of your day.